Roger with the Early Valiant Barracuda Club. Look, I haven't done one of these little tech videos in a while, so I got a quick one for you now, a short one. It has to do with windshield washer motors. Bet you guys don't know what's inside them. Hold on, I'm going to show you. Alright, here we have a washer motor that I recently fixed, rebuilt it. Motor works great, pump works great, and I'll probably put this one in my car when it's all said and done. But what's inside these things? What makes them pump? Well, here's the motor, and has a little shaft. You can see on the shaft there's a little slot on there. That slot goes to a slot on the shaft of the pump. And you got your inlet and your outlet, and all the components inside there. It is typically riveted to the back of the motor housing. See? Alright. And use little rivets like that. And it's connected by, where's my little connector? What did I do with it? There it is. There's my connector. It's a little piece of metal. A couple notches cut in it. And what it does is it slips into the slot. Come on, get in the slot. There we go. Like that. And then to the slot on the motor shaft. And that's what spins the motor. Rather, spins the pump. And inside here, we'll take one of these apart. Take a look side by side. Now, this one is cracked. Right here you can see. And that's what happens to most of these pumps is water gets left inside them. It freezes over the winter and it cracks these things. But inside here you have a seal, which goes in like that. Then you have a bushing. It's on the outside, supports the shaft. Back here, just have a shaft here where a gear goes, and another gear goes in. There's your shaft, it connects to the actual motor. Holding it all together, you have a plate, looks like it's copper or brass, and a flexible, let's see if I can show it to you here. There we go, seal. And that seals that all up to the back plate of the housing. Now, what I got going on here is I have two motor housings, two covers. Now what's unique about these two here is that they're pretty close to being identical, right? The one on the right is a Mopar motor, okay? Got a ground tab on the bottom that when you put the screw through, grounds it all out. Right? This one has a ground tab on the inside. If you notice, do it this way, the mounting holes are bigger too for where the bushings go through. Now they mount with obviously these little rubber bushings. This one has these rubber bushings. It's got a little tube through there so you don't crush it too far. Why is that? Why is this one different? I'll tell you why. That's why. This is off of a Mustang, and it's made by the same company that makes them, or did make them, for Chrysler Plymouth. So I guess Ford had a different spec. They wanted a bigger mounting bushing, and they wanted the ground strap on the inside as opposed to the outside. But other than that, these parts are identical. The motors, connectors, the pumps, the shafts, everything. So I'm going to end up rebuilding this Mopar housing with parts from this Ford pump. And the reason for that is this is the housing for the pump that came out of the Mopar motor. When I picked this up, it was painted silver. Everything was painted, even the plastic up here. And it's kind of crusty and deteriorated. So I'm not going to use this housing because it is cracked. But what I did on that pump was I actually kind of filed it out a little bit, put a little JB weld on it, put a zip tie on the outside to hold it all tight. That way the seal and the bushing stayed in and it sealed up fine. And that pump actually works really great. But I'm not going to use that. I'm going to use the Ford housing, which is what I pulled out. Now, these are the gear set from the Mopar. Why? Well, this is the gear set from the Ford. It actually broke a tooth off the main drive shaft for the pump. So those are going to go over there. Drive shaft and gear from the Mopar pump is going to go into the housing out of the Ford pump, and it's all going to go into the Mopar housing when I'm done. Probably going to remove this electrical connector too. This comes to the back, and it is soldered to the motor with one wire. I'm going to remove the Ford one. It's a different color, but that's all right. Same thing. And I'm going to place it in here. Clean this all up, give it a coat of paint. This would be great. The lids are different too. Show you this. See, this one is dead center. It's got a little cover that kind of goes over the connector. See, like that? Even though this is a different housing, and it is a Mopar housing, it doesn't have the same kind of connector as this one does. This cover, it's offset for some strange reason. Maybe this one went to this pump? Don't know. Anyway, that one looks like garbage. This one is actually the one off of the Ford pump. It's the same part. No one's going to ever know. Nozzle and reservoir markings are in the same spot. So that'll get cleaned up and get a nice coat of paint. And we'll put together, out of parts, another pump assembly. So there you have it. In case you were ever wondering what was inside one of these, what makes them go, what makes them pump, that's all the parts. All right, you may experience the motor itself may be seized up or non-functioning electrically. So you can take it apart and rebuild them. Clean them up, clean up the brushes, and see what it looks like. And you may get successful, but I cleaned this one up and got it functional a couple years ago, painted the outside motor housing. So I'm going to take this apart while I clean up the pump housing itself. But you can see these outer housings are just staked into the pump housing. Little detent, just use a center punch. So let me put the camera down here and we'll take this apart. I need 2 hands for that. There we go. Just support the shaft a little bit, and you can see the commutator there. And inside here are the brushes. So I'm going to take it all the way out. There. And there are your brushes, right here. You got a little bearing bushing inside there. One of these is positive, this one's grounded. And in here you have your magnets inside the case, and then your motor commutator. And with this one, all I did was cleaned up this, cleaned up the bushings, made sure we had good ground, and put power to it, and it worked. So I'm going to leave these parts out while I clean up the housing, and be very careful with these. You break one of these little tabs off, and you're kind of done looking for a new housing. Okay, we got this piece all cleaned up best we can. Taped off. Yes, don't forget to mask everything so you don't paint it all over like the last guy did when I did this one. And you can see back there, that's back where the pump section sits, the lower part. When they crack, they rust because all the moisture gets in there, is trapped back there. So clean that out good. If you get a housing that's really too thin, you might have to find a new pump assembly. Alright, housing's all painted, and now what we're going to do before we put the connector back on, which I've cleaned up, carefully clean the wire with a little bit of 400 grit sandpaper, gently scraping it. I want it nice and clean. Cleaned up the connector quite a bit. And this is an old school glass circuit breaker, which I tested the motor prior. I know it works, it's good, so we're going to be gentle with that. But to mount the housing back, when I took it out, I carefully ground off these rivets on the inside, just enough. Now, to get them back on, I'm going to remove a little bit of material from the plastic, so the rivets stick out just a little bit more, and then I'll be able to sink them right back in. I want to give you a close-up of what I configured to kind of reset those rivets. Got a C-clamp here. I'm using a spring clamp to hold the pump housing up against the back wall, so not flopping around. I have a magnet here. I took a screw, flattened out the head a little bit, and rounded the tip so it fits inside that hollow rivet. Using the C-clamp, just kind of twist it till it sets, and it's all set. I'll take it off. I'll do the last two. Alright, we got the rivet set. The pump housing itself is pulled nice and tight up against the back plate here of the entire assembly itself. And I had painted the assembly earlier, but I ended up marring the finish a little bit, which is fine. Sanded it back down. I wanted to paint the heads of the rivets anyway, so all's good. Now, next up, a little more reassembly. I cleaned up the brushes and the area in there with some electrical cleaner. Cleaned up the armature a little bit more, and I'm going to put a little bit of grease right on the end here before I put the end cup on. And the end cup, you do have to make sure that you get the little notch lined up with the tab. So I got the armature in, brushes sort of set. Then I was able to put this flat connector piece in. Just a little piece of metal, got slots in it, so it goes into each of the two shafts. You can see this one is a little twisted. Well, it's spring steel, and this one came out of that Ford motor, the one with the broken toothed gear. My only thought is that at some point when that gear broke, it jammed up in here while the motor was running, and the thing twisted that thing out. So it's back in. We're gonna put a little grease on the tip of that armature, put the cover back on, and then we'll get the connector back on. All right, everything's back together. Not too bad. Got the thing soldered in. The motor cover's on. Still a little loose. It gets staked in two spots. I got to work on that. I'm not happy with that, the way it flops around. The outer cover's cleaned up as best as can with a little steel wool. Now these are typically left, raw aluminum anyway. They're zinc coated, I think. Not sure. I mean, the finish has come off over the years. So I didn't stake the cover down yet, because I may take it off and give it a coat of the Eastwood tank tone. Same as the support structure for the whole pump assembly. I like the tank tone. It actually has a nice color. It's got zinc in it, and it'll help protect everything. But we're all set to go to test this pump itself. We've got our reservoir bottle and our nozzle set up over here. Let's see what we can make happen. Here we go. Now I can go hands-free. A little noisy. Gotta prime the pump. Yeah, keep that tight. There we go. There you have it. Well, after setting this pump next to this pump, I decided to paint over the cover tabs. I like the look. I mean, the brushed aluminum just cleaned up like that. It's natural. It looks more correct. This is probably the pump I'm going to put on my car. I'll keep this one as a backup. The aluminum cover on this one was really pitted, and it had a lot of discoloration in it, so I just went ahead and gave it a coat of tank tone, same as the rest of the housing. This one, I'm just going to leave it like that. I think it looks good. All from parts from same manufacturer, but a Ford. So, as you can see, there's not a lot to these washer pumps. You can take them apart on your own and usually fix them up all by yourself. There's not a lot to them. They're pretty simple. So if your washer pump's not working, don't be afraid. Take it apart. Now you know what it looks like on the inside. Use this video as a guide, and you can more than likely get your pump functional again. Well, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, and see you at Carlisle.